Okay, so the recording has now started. I will now hand to the chair, Councillor Adja Ovat.
Good morning and welcome to the Special Licensing Subcommittee today, the 23rd of June. My name is Councillor Adja Ovat and I am the Chair of Licensing. Before we begin, if I can have those present to introduce themselves, starting with the councillors on the committee, then the officers, the objectors, and then the applicant. So starting off with myself, my name is Councillor Adja Ovat and I'm the Chair of Licensing and member for Northumberland Park. Hand over to the councillors.
I'm Councillor Sheila Peacock, a member for South Tottenham Ward.
And I'm Councillor Yvonne Say, a member for White Hart Lane Ward.
And the objectors? I'm sorry, the officers.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Dale Barrett, Licensing Team Leader.
I'm Nazia Chowdhury. I'm the Principal Committee Coordinator and the Clerk to this hearing.
I'm Rachel Bonus. I'm the Legal Officer.
And now the objectors.
I'm Jennifer Barrett. I'm the Noise and Nuisance and Licensing Enforcement Manager.
Good morning, I'm PC Mitchum, one of 4 licensing officers. I'm here today on behalf of PC Golota.
And now the applicant.
Hi, I'm Cornelia Kotloguts, applying for 502-508 High Road, the classic restaurant.
Thank you.
And
yeah.
My name is Fabian Sims. I'm a licensing consultant.
Thank you. Okay, now with the first item of the agenda, filming at meetings. Please note this meeting is being recorded and will be available for public viewing. Second item, apologies for absence. Are there any apologies for absence?
None, Chair.
Thank you. Third item, urgent business. As this is a special meeting of the subcommittee under Part 4, Section B, Paragraph 17 of the Council's Constitution, no other business shall be considered at the meeting. Fourth item, declarations of interest. Do members have any declarations of interest?
No, Chair.
No, Chair.
Thank you. Fifth item, summary of procedure. The procedure for the meeting has been emailed to all participants by the clerk. For the purposes of any members of the public watching, we will first hear from the licensing officer. After that, the objectors will present their case in the committee and applicant will have the opportunity to ask questions. Then the applicant will present their application and the committee and objectors will have the opportunity to ask questions. All parties will then have the opportunity to sum up and then the meeting will conclude to allow the committee to deliberate and reach a decision. This decision will then be provided in writing within 5 working days of this meeting. Additionally, I'm going to note the ground rules for this remote hearing as follows. Please ensure your cameras are open and that you are muted when you're not speaking. If you have technical difficulties, please use the chat function. Please do not use the chat function for putting formal questions to the subcommittee. If you wish to speak, please raise your hand and direct all communication via the chair. We will take all papers as read unless there is anything you wish to draw our attention to. All speakers will be allocated 5 minutes to speak. When speaking, please be succinct and do not exceed the allocated time unless you request for an extension of time, which is at the discretion of the chair. Please do not share addresses of speakers. In the event that there be several speakers for each party, please avoid repetition and perhaps consider having a spokesperson to address all concerns. So 6th item, which is the objection to a temporary event notice at Classic Restaurant 502 to 508 High Road, London N17. Ms. Barrett, Licensing Officer, please can you introduce your report?
Thank you, Chair. Can I just have a clarity, please, on one point, Chair? As this is a temporary event notice, the decision will need to be made today, so we don't have the benefit of the 5 days. Basically, that decision will need to be made today. Okay.
Thank you for that.
And also, while I'm speaking, we've just received a document from Ms. Kotlogut, which states or says it's a dispersal policy, as the police and the noise RA have not been able to view the document, or well, neither myself as well. Can I ask Ms. Cutler-Good, please, to just speak to that document at this hearing so she can give the panel an overview of what the content of that document is and how the plan is going to be set out, and the dispersal policy that she's wanting to present to you, or she will need to give that verbally today. Okay.
Yeah, that's fine.
Sorry.
Yes.
Sure. Can I jump in 1 second?
Go on, Mr. Sims.
So the document is about 6 pages long. What I would suggest is if we could have an adjournment for 10 or 15 minutes, because to speak on it word for word will take some time. We're talking about a document with about 2,000 words in it, but it's broken down into bullet points and different sections of how the evening or how the event will run. But to speak would be quite difficult.
Mr. Sims, is it possible to have an overview instead of having adjournment, an overview of basically what the summary of the document is?
Okay, so I could give a brief one, yeah.
If we could have it when the representations are being made, if possible.
No.
Yeah. So if we can start with Miss Barrett providing, the licensing officer providing her representations, and then when we come to the applicants, if we can be presented with an overview of that fresh document at that time.
Chair, if I may, just quickly, just in relation to the late admission of evidence, that we could adjourn just very briefly for us to for the panel just to consider whether to admit it, and we would need to hear from the objectors, the other parties, because obviously it's only been made available at the hearing.
Yeah.
But there is obviously if the applicant is happy just to speak to it, that's fine. But they did suggest that we do consider it. So I think that we should probably consider it under Rule 21, whether it is admitted or whether to just ask the applicant to speak to it. So if we could perhaps adjourn for 1 or 2 minutes just to fully consider the application, given what the applicant has said.
That's fine, Rachel. Thank you for that advice. Yep, I agree. I think an adjournment then would be best advice for 2 minutes.
So I understand that the committee would like to adjourn for 2 minutes right now. Is that correct?
Yes, please. Just to consider how to deal with the documentary evidence. But before we do, it would be good to hear from the objectors as to whether they consent to the admission of this late evidence.
Can I please just get Councillor Peacock's
Will we have sight of the document? Will he upload it so we can have sight of the document in the deferment? I think it's important that we actually see it.
I would say that I think we should decide on whether it should be admitted, and then it can be uploaded, and then perhaps a longer adjournment would be required for reading. If I think it's about 2,000 words, Mr. Sims said, then you'd probably need longer. I think this initial adjournment is just to consider whether to admit it or just ask Mr. Sims and the applicant to speak to it.
committee members, is it okay with you?
Well, we'll give it a try.
Yeah,
And
no problem.
and the objectors?
So that's the police and Kaylee and Jennifer Barrett. If you've got any concerns with this late document being admitted.
I have no concerns, no.
Okay, we'll seek an adjournment for 2 minutes then.
Okay, sorry, can we just hear from Ms. Barrett?
Yeah.
Oh, sorry,
Jennifer
I
Barrett.
was just behind. No, it's difficult to comment if you don't know what's in it. So
Okay, that's helpful. Thank you.
So
Thank
Naz, do you want the rest of us to
No.
come off the call at this
No.
moment?
So if everyone could stay on, and I will invite the councillors through to a deliberation room. So if everybody just hangs on for a minute, I'll be
Okay.
you'll be with me shortly. Everyone else just stay on.
By 2 o'clock, we have to close.
Thank you. Could I ask a question, please? On the committee of delivery.
If it's to do with the case, not really.
Just a general question.
Okay.
I'm not on the police list. Mr. Alan Manjadi referred to a notice being served. Was a notice ever served?
Sorry, say that again. I did that. That was not clear at all.
I noticed on the police representation, on the first page, in the final paragraph, they've said a notice, a closure notice. Has that been served? Was that ever served?
It was a warning that was sent.
Okay. Thank you.
I assume everyone is now back
Yeah.
from the deliberation.
Councillor Peacock, Councillor Say, if you could just acknowledge that you are here. I think you are.
Yes, I'm here.
I think you can see me.
Rachel, if you want to go ahead.
Thank you. Yes, as per Rule 21 of the hearing, rules, there were no objections to the admission of the late evidence, and therefore the licensing subcommittee have decided to allow the admission of the late evidence. And so from there, I understand that the document will be made available now to all the parties, and the subcommittee have decided to allow a short adjournment of around 10 minutes to allow everyone in the hearing to consider the documentary evidence, and after that the hearing will continue.
Thank you. Naz, I think the document will be sent. Is that right?
Yeah. So if somebody could either send me or the licensing officer, Dahlia Barrett, the document so that it can be circulated. I do not currently have it.
We have it in the inbox. I shall send it on now.
Thank you, Dale.
So do we leave this meeting?
I don't know who should answer this one, but I mean, I think Rachel, that there's no real need to leave the room as everybody considers the document, but I don't know if you have a different opinion.
I think it would be best for everyone to leave as it's an adjournment, and then we choose a time. So once the document circulates, so maybe 10 past 11, so that sort of gives us 13 minutes. That'll be roughly 10 minutes from when the document's received. That should give everyone sufficient time. So if we reconvene at 10 past 11, at least then everyone knows, but I think everyone should leave.
Before everyone leaves, if we can make sure everyone can just confirm that they've received it before we all leave, just so there's no issues. So I'll just wait for the document to be received by everyone.
I don't know how to do that at the same time as looking at the screen. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I don't know how to do that. I'm not always keen on IT.
No. So
I'm going to leave the meeting and I'll wait for the email to come.
Yeah, me too.
Okay. Yeah. All right. See you later.
Yeah.
Chair, I would suggest the adjournment starts now then, and we all return at 10 past.
Brilliant. All right, we'll all return 10 past. So see you soon.
Been sent on to everybody.
Hiya, Naz.
Hiya, I've no idea why everybody decided to abandon the meeting, but
No. No. I mean, I think it was good to, if you're having an adjournment, get everyone out. But obviously just wait until you're
I-
told to.
I mean, yeah.
Yeah, no, I think it's better. I think it's better because then there's no, I think it's clearer then. I think it's clearer just to, if you're having an adjournment for everyone, then you have an adjournment. I do think.
Well, I mean, you can still have an adjournment, like you can still leave people on the call and then have a separate adjournment. I mean, they didn't leave. That was not. It was difficult to just get them in.
Yeah.
Let's hope we don't have the same problem again.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, I suppose the difficulty is if people start saying things during the adjournment, you don't then get that control. That's the thing.
Right.
If you were in a physical hearing space, you'd be out the room and it wouldn't be in front of the committee. But because it's not a physical space, if you've got people hanging around, they could just say stuff when they're reading through it. And I think that lack of control sort of I could see potential issues, you know what I mean? If someone just makes a comment or I think that kind of thing could confuse it. So I do think I mean it's not ideal any way you do it, but I do think it's still probably the correct way of dealing with it. But yeah.
But in the physical meeting, pretty much everyone's to still be in the meeting room. I mean, the councillors would adjourn, sure, but like everyone else would still be in the meeting room, wouldn't they?
Yeah, yeah, exactly. But then I suppose, the councillors wouldn't be there.
Yeah, but then we already had a separate room for the councillors, though, didn't we?
Okay, well then maybe next time that is the way to do it. Get them to leave. Yeah. I guess you don't know until you come across these things, do you? But yeah, that is probably the thing to do next time. Just get them to go into a separate room. Yeah. Fine. It's hard to think sort of get everything right on the spot, isn't it? If you've not done it before.
Yeah, I mean, I think if as soon as we use the word everybody thinks it's everybody. So.
Yes, but I mean the councillors went before.
Yeah, they did.
So we didn't really have an option, to be honest. That's the other thing now.
Yeah,
we had to do something quickly because.
Yeah, at that moment it was like they all left.
We don't want to. Yeah, exactly. So we don't really want to just be hanging around. Otherwise, that can jeopardise the hearing in a different way. So. It's you just have to deal with what comes up, don't you? I suppose sometimes. But yeah.
But at least the meeting started, so there's no 15-minute limit now.
Yeah. No, hopefully it'll be smooth from here on in. Even the simple ones seem to.
It's just because they submitted this. I mean, they didn't submit it, but
Yeah.
They sent it to me. They sent it to somebody at Naz at Haringey, right? So, which is why I never got it.
Yes.
And so now this it just ended up in the way.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, if someone had objected to it, then we probably wouldn't have had to admit it because it was so late. If someone had said no, it's too late, then I think that would have been a really good reason not to admit it. It's only because they agreed. If you don't object, then there's not really any scope for not allowing it. But because the other party said, yeah, that's fine, then it's fine. There's not really, you can't then say no, even though no one objects to it, I'm still not letting it in.
I don't ever remember doing a 10 where somebody submitted an additional document.
It's it's I mean, well, I can see sort of what's happening on this one, but yeah, they're sort of trying to get everything in order, aren't they? Lastminute.com, but yeah. Oh well.
Usually they do that as soon as they see that it's actually going to.
Yeah, exactly, because there's not much time anyway, is there, with these things? So, what happened with Mr. Salmon? I saw that one was
Yeah,
cancelled.
I mean, Dale said she had no problem. She had no problem with the meeting not going ahead and being sort of delayed for a bit. So I'm going to try and fix a July meeting.
Okay.
that was a bit of a knock to the stomach. Yeah, they what happened was there was a Network Rail strike, and the licensing officer who was going to be presenting couldn't make it. Okay.
Right, I see. Yeah. Hi, Chair.
Hiya. I think we're still waiting for Councillor Peacock.
Yeah, and the applicants.
Oh, the applicants.
Okay, so back in the meeting with us, we have councillors Ovat, Peacock and Say, and we have our objectors, our licensing officers, and we have our two representatives of the applicant and the applicants themselves. So I will now, as the adjournment is now comes to an end, I will hand back to Councillor Ovat to continue the proceedings.
Thank you. I take it that now the document has been read by all. We'll now go back to Ms. Barrett, Licensing Officer. Please, can you introduce your report?
Thank you, Chair. Chair, just to explain on this report, I have at the start of the documents you have just set out the background information really around temporary event notices, what they are, how they're used and that sort of thing. So the actual report itself actually begins on page 4. Okay, so that's where I'll pick up. I'm assuming that the members have read through the documents in any event, so I've seen the guidance bit at the beginning. Okay, great. All right, so the committee has before them this morning a application, well, it's a contested application for a temporary event notice submitted by Ms. Cotler for Classic Restaurant at 502-508 High Road, N17. The application submitted is seeking to offer the activities of the provision of regulated entertainment, late night refreshment and the sale of alcohol at the venue for the 24th of June into the 25th of June from 8 p.m. on the 24th of June through till 3:30 a.m. on the 25th of June for 300 people. In terms of the representations submitted by the police and the noise RA, the policy implications share the licensing objectives engaged by this application would be the prevention of crime and disorder, the prevention of public nuisance, and public safety also. The objections received, the police note that Ms. Kotlagut and her partner, Ms. Mandachi, have continued to use the venue for unauthorised licensed activity for a period of time. The premises is situated behind McDonald's off High Road, Tottenham, N17, and it consists of a large hall located upstairs on the first floor. The premises was previously a snooker hall, but is now being operated as an entertainment venue and restaurant. We're advised that there is no planning permission, that there is planning permission in place, sorry, for this use, and the applicant has been provided with details also to engage with the planning on this matter because it was a snooker hall, just to check that they didn't need to do any further applications. And I think that's now been discussed with the actual landlord and the planning team. The premises has come to the attention of the council and police due to unauthorised activity found to be taking place on site, and these matters are subject also to enforcement action and prosecution through the courts for these offences. Ms. Kotlagut and her partner, Mr. Mandachi, continue to operate the venue without a valid licence. Police and local authority enforcement have provided numerous guidance and information to both Ms. Kotlagut and Mr. Mandachi about the need to ensure they were compliant with the law. At the worst point, Mr. Mandachi was taking steps to actively block and obstruct officers from entering the venue to investigate the unlawful activity. And at one event in February in 2022, fighting broke out at an event, and an attendee, in fact, received an injury to their face. There were further events being promoted at this point, and the council took the steps to serve a letter of intent to apply for a closure order if Mr. Mandachi and Mr. Kotlagut failed to cancel the immediate proposed events following that serious incident. As I said, there is the active prosecution on this matter. The application is opposed as the applicant has not demonstrated that they would comply with relevant law or conditions put in place with regards to promoting or upholding the licensing objectives. In terms of comments from the licensing officer chair, the section 182 guidance and the relevant chapters are shown at section 4.1, and at sections 4.2 have also specified the relevant sections of the council's own statement of licensing policy, which you will be able to use when you go out to deliberate on this matter. In conclusion, section 106 of the Act provides that the licensing authority may impose one or more conditions on the standard TENS if it considers it appropriate for the promotion of the licensing objectives to do so. The conditions are also imposed on a premises license or club premises certificate that has effect. In this case, there is no premises license, so that is not for. And the condition would not be inconsistent with the carrying out of licensed activities under the TENS. Members have three options when determining the notice. That's either to issue a counter notice or to impose conditions on the TENS where those that are already imposed on the premises license would then come into play, which isn't a consideration here, or to refuse to issue the counter notice. I'll just remind the panel that section 17 of the Crime and Disorder Act comes into play, which places the onus of regard on the committee to ensure that we're taking all the necessary steps to ensure we are doing all we can to prevent crime and disorder in this area, as does the Human Rights Act, Chair. And Chair, there I will leave it if you wish to now hear from the police and the ASB noise officer, or if you have any questions for me.
Thank you, Ms. Barrett. Yes, I just wanted to ask the members first to see if they've got any questions for Ms. Barrett, licensing officer.
No questions. Thanks, Chair.
I have no questions. Thank you.
Okay, and I'll ask the objectors, Ms. Jennifer Barrett or PC Mitchum, if you've got any questions for Ms. Barrett.
No questions from me.
No questions from me too.
Okay, I'll ask now the applicants if you've got any questions for the licensing officer.
No questions.
No, thank you. Okay, so we will now hear from the objectors. Firstly, Ms. Jennifer Barrett from Noise and Nuisance. If you could now speak and make your representations.
Good morning, Chair. So the applicant has made a request for an event for 300 people, which terminates at 3 in the morning, the following morning of the weekend. They, as has been specified previously, continue to operate in breach of the Licensing Act despite warnings issued. We have specific concerns about their ability to uphold the licensing objective in relation to prevention of public nuisance. They have on 2 occasions prevented officers from making routine late night inspections for licensing issues. And so we have concerns about being able to access the premises if we need to. We have on those visits been made aware of other breaches of licensing regulations, including smoking indoors and the service of alcohol when no TENS has been issued, or where they have stated a TENS has been issued but none has actually been verified. So we have concerns about the competence of the DPS to uphold the licensing objectives and comply with the Licensing Act in regards to public nuisance. We have specific concerns about dispersal at 3 AM for 300 people. And their ability to heed our warnings in relation to and compliance with the Licensing Act.
Thank you, Ms. Barrett. Anything further to add?
Nothing further to add. Oh, actually, I would add one other thing, which was that the only element of the TENS application which related to regulated entertainment and public nuisance was the commission of 6 SIA, but very little details was provided in terms of what those 6 SIA would be undertaking. There is a gated access, which in previous times they've just locked to prevent I don't know whether it's exit or egress of patrons, but it also prevents us from entering the premises should we need to, which has meant that in terms of us raising issues about licensing objectives or responding to complaints, it does make that very difficult.
Thank you, Ms. Barrett. I will now take questions from members for Ms. Barrett. Any questions?
No questions from me, thanks.
Councillor Peacock?
My only concern was the alleyway, which is very narrow and very small, and often there are cars parked there. Were there cars parked there when you visited, Miss Barrett?
There was a car on the first occasion. I'm not aware of the second occasion because I wasn't in attendance, but I'm aware that they on occasion park cars in that alleyway even when the premises is occupied. You're correct.
Yeah, thank you.
Miss Barrett, I just wanted to know whether there have been numerous complaints from many of the residents in the area regarding the noise issues, and if so, how many have been reported to your knowledge?
So no complaints directly from residents. This is most of our work and objections and inspections have been in relation to unlicensed activities, unlawful unlicensed activities. So operation of events, even when no permission has been granted.
Okay, thank you.
Chair, if I may come back, there are very few residents living in this immediate area. Most of the places are unoccupied. From the shops in the high road, the flats above are unoccupied, and there's just a block of flats behind to the left, and possibly they wouldn't have been involved in any of this.
Sorry, Chair, that's correct. Councillor Peacock, I had my hand up to advise of that. That is correct. So the complaints that have been received have really come from other businesses, in fact, who've been affected, but not so much from residents.
Thank you, Dale. Ms. Barrett. Any questions from the applicants for Ms. Jennifer Barrett?
I have one in regards to the reference. They have stopped officers from visiting and conducting their investigation. As far as I'm aware, hello, can you hear me?
Yeah, yes. We can hear you.
Yeah, as far as I'm aware, the only person that has stopped any access to the premises is a person called Alan Mankiewicz, and it doesn't relate to my client. Another point I want to raise is it's sort of a personal matter. There was a relationship between my client and Alan, but that is been terminated. I won't go into the specific details. You may want to elaborate further, but the application for the temporary event notice today operated and run.
Mr. Sim, sorry, it's just there's some kind of noise that's coming through, so we can't really hear clearly. I don't know if you're close to the phone or if it's causing some kind of noise.
Yeah. I don't know what's happening. Is that better?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Right. Yeah. So the application itself today for the 10th is just for my client. It has nothing to do with Mr. Alan Mankiewicz.
I would just make the point that on the two occasions I'm referring to, access was not granted by their security officers.
Dale, if you wanted to.
Chair, I feel I need to ensure that the committee are not misled on this matter at all. So Mr. Mandaci has in fact been in contact directly with us in relation to this TENS and when the hearing was going to be. As far as we are aware, Mr. Mandaci and Ms. Kotlegert are partners in the business and are husband and wife or partners in any event. So just to ensure that, you know, the reality of it, I know this application is in Ms. Kotlegert's name, but Mr. Mandaci has been the one who's been contacting. Well, he's directly phoned me in relation to this matter and has been in touch with our service about the TENS and, you know, his need for the matter to have been taken to the licensing committee hearing also.
Thank you, Ms. Barrett, for the clarification. Besides the representative, does the applicant want to add anything further or ask any questions for the noise and nuisance manager?
Go ahead.
I have just one more point to raise.
Yep,
I've seen some emails that has been circulated. And my understanding is that the TENS application was submitted, and they were told that it was out of time, and then I think some checks have come along, and it's been discovered that the TENS application was in the time frame needed. That's why we're here today. But the initial TENS was refused due to being out of the parameters of the legislation.
Is this your question for Miss Jennifer Barrett?
No, for Dahlia, yeah.
Yeah, but okay, so yes, when I looked at the.
Just to confirm, yeah. So what I've been initially told was that the TENS was applied for, There was some communication from the council that said that the tender's out of time and it was refused. And I believe Mr. Mandaci spoke to the council or yourself to clarify the points in terms of dates or days that were allotted, and then that's why this hearing has been booked.
Okay, so just to give clarity to that, so the only ones that can well, in my team to administer whether attendance is received within the time limit or not would have been something my team would have done. On checking this, I noticed that it was passed to the police and to the noise officers to comment on in any event. And I raised concern with Mr. Mandaci that the timeline, the 10 working days, was 1 day short. I then went back and checked when the application arrived in the gov.uk on the ELMS and found out that no, he did in fact meet the 10 days, required 10 days. And that was then, I said to him, that's fine, it can go ahead. He then called me back and said, you know, he's got the objections anyway from the police and from the noise officers, and he'd like to have the matter come through to yourselves for them to be able to put their case, which is what they're doing here today.
Thank you, Dale. Mr. Sims, if we can just follow the structure, because we've already asked if anyone's got questions for Miss Dahlia Barrett earlier, and now it was basically questions for Miss Jennifer Barrett. So if we can kind of keep to the structure, that'll be great. So any further questions for Miss Jennifer Barrett from the applicant's representative? No. Okay, thank you. If we can now go to the second objector, PC Mitchum, Hayley Mitchum, if you can provide your representation.
Afternoon. As previously stated, the applicant has applied for a 10 for the 24th of June, which police rejected outright due to ongoing concerns of continued unlicensed activity at the premises and disruption to businesses in the area from when patrons have been leaving the venue. Police have been called on numerous occasions to the venue and were in fact in attendance with local authority when they were denied access, which hindered the investigation of a serious assault which had taken place within the premises. We have in fact been made aware just this morning of 2 separate incidents which took place the early hours of this morning and yesterday evening at the premises. If I may give details on that.
Hi, Ms. Mitchum. Yes, if you could clarify the details, please.
I'm just following. So police were called to the premises at 19:32 hours of the 22nd of June in relation to an assault at the venue. The victim had called police stating that he had been assaulted inside the venue, which was holding a wedding for the traveller community. During this, he has stated that he has been assaulted and subsequently removed from the premises by security. He was conveyed to hospital by police, and the matter has since been closed. A second call was made by a female within the premises who had also been ejected after she was assaulted inside. This call came at, I believe, just after midnight, the 23rd of June. Again, the female didn't wish to substantiate any allegations and had left the premises. However, it was clear from officers on scene that there was a large amount of alcohol being consumed within, and it was made clear to the officers that there was no CCTV working at the premises, so they were unable to check to have any update on what had happened within the premises. So again, with this in mind, police we don't have any confidence that the licensing objectives will be upheld should an event go ahead at the premises.
Thank you, PC Mitchum. Do members have any questions for PC Mitchum? Yep, Councillor Peacock.
This again was an unlicensed event that took place. Am I right? Is that for Dahlia, really? Was that an unlicensed event that took place last night?
Councillor, we're not aware of what this event was. It could have been a booking, it could have been a wedding of some kind. We don't know if the alcohol was being given, you know, or if you know, I don't know at this stage if the hirers brought their alcohol on site, or if the club, or if the alcohol that was being consumed was also contained in the hire fee that they then paid for the hire of that hall. We don't know, because again, it's another event that's taken place under the radar, really.
Yeah, thank you very much for the information. Thank you.
Councillor Say, do you have any questions for PC
No
Mitchum?
questions from me. No, thank you.
Thank you. Any questions from the applicant or applicant's representative, Mr. Sims, for PC Mitchum?
Just one question. Did the police actually attend the premises itself, and who was in charge?
Yes, police did attend. Unfortunately, at this minute, I do not have the details of who was in charge. I can try and get that for you whilst we're on the call.
Any action taken?
The action taken by officers?
Yep.
Officers dealt with the victim. So the first victim was taken to hospital by the officers. He didn't wish to make any further allegations. And the second victim wished to leave the premises, which was done so by officers. She wanted to be taken to a place of safety, which was done.
So there were two visits yesterday?
Yes, there was one. There was a call to police at 1932, and then there was the second one, excuse me, at just after midnight of today's date. Yeah,
what I'm trying to sort of get to is actual visits, because there was a telephone call at 1932. A man being assaulted, this is the last I've put in, and there's a second call just after midnight, and a woman was assaulted and ejected from the venue. I'm just trying to draw down, did the police actually visit the premises itself?
Yes, the officers had to attend the venue because that's where the
once or twice.
Twice.
It's about 4.5 hour gap.
That's correct. That's correct. They're two separate incidents, but at the same premises. Yeah.
So there was two visits from the police officers.
That's correct.
Do you know what time they visited?
Mr. Sims, if you could, it's getting into a cross-examination kind of area. If you could have, yeah, if you've got a certain question, if you could just ask, but not continuous questions. If you could come through me, if you've got any additional questions, please.
Apologies, Chair.
It's okay.
Just wanted to clarify the time of the visits or visits.
I'm happy to do that. So first call was made to police on the 22nd of June at 1932. Police attended the premises, Classic Restaurant, and then a second call was made to police on the 23rd of June, so the early hours of this morning, just past midnight, and police attended the venue again, Classic Restaurant.
So, Chair, all I want is just the time that the police visited. I understand that there was a call at 1932 and just after midnight, but I just wanted to know when police actually physically visited the premises.
Unfortunately, I don't have the ETA of when officers arrived on scene.
That should have been in the cabinet. Okay, no problem.
Okay. Any other points of clarification from anyone else for PC Mitchum? Okay, thank you. If we can now have representations from the applicant or the applicant's representative, Mr. Sims, if you're going to be representing on her behalf.
Yeah, so I won't obviously go through the whole document.
Yeah.
But see, it's a comprehensive dispersal policy that we've got enough time periods which issues generally occur at any venue with a large number of people. And there's specific measures, control measures in place in order to facilitate people leaving in a stagnant way without any issues upon the local vicinity. One of the main points, obviously, that I discussed with the client is the employment of SIA door supervisors and their role in making sure that issues of crime and disorder do not happen. And their role has been sort of defined through my client in order to make sure that the SIA company that is being used adhere to the points made.
Oh, Mr. Sims, you're on mute. We still can't hear you, Mr. Sims.
Hello, can you hear me
Hello?
now?
Yeah, can hear you
Sorry.
now. Can continue.
When
Thank
you went
you.
to mute for no reason, I don't understand. Sorry.
That's fine.
So what I was saying was the intention of the document is for it to be used as a control measure and the conditions in relation to the event. My client will sort of go through the details of the event and what it is and what the purpose of the event is. But as I referred to, the disclosure policy has broken down various points of contention that any large venue could have, dealt with it in sort of bite-sized matters. So the members of staff and SIA door supervisors can have a clear direction in what they have to do in order to make sure that their license objectives are being upheld. But Cornelia will be able to detail what the event is and provide more background information. I know the initial application was quite sparse. I think it said private event, but she will break down what the event is and why she needs to have it in order to keep the business running, essentially.
Yeah, if we can hear from Cornelia.
Hi, so the event will be a community event. Will be like singers coming from Romania. Two singers coming from Romania. We're gonna serve like 3-course meal, starter, main course, and dessert. People, they will be drinking alcohol, but the waitress will go and serve them at the table. They wouldn't be just like in a pub going everywhere, so they're gonna be seated. We're gonna have quite a big member of staff. We're gonna have like 6 security people, like 8 waitresses. In the kitchen will be 5 people working, 2 staff members on the entrance, and 2 bar staff at the bar. We have like 16 CCTVs working. So I just really need this event going because I'm quite desperate. I want to sell the business, and I split up with Alan Mandash now. So I just received like 2 days ago a phone call from somebody else, and I just don't want to see him. I'm pregnant now, and I want to just sell the business, have this event, try to get the license and sell the business and go back to Romania for my family to help me, because I have already a little girl and now I'm 21 weeks pregnant, and I'm struggling with the money. He did lots of bad things for me as for the business as well. And I just want to move on, to have some money to move on, to go back home, so survive, brought up the kids. So I'm trying to do the event myself. Not he wouldn't be involved whatsoever. I just don't want to see him. Probably I just gonna call the police and ask for some restrictions for me and the business. And I just want to try to get the license and sort out my life and see for my kids.
Okay, thank you, Miss Good. Yeah. Did you want to just add?
Yeah, so my understanding from having a brief discussion with the solicitors this morning, that there's a potential buyer for the site, but the sale is dependent upon the issuing of a license. Just to give you sort of a background, and Ms. Barrett could sort of confirm this, Cornelius has applied for a permanent full-time premises license, which is to be heard at the end of the month, I believe. I don't have the dates in front of me. And then if the license is issued by the local authority, there will be a period where it will be transferred across to the buyer. So contracts have been signed, but the contracts are subject to a license being issued at the premises. So there's a buyer waiting in the wings in order to take over the business, and this is an opportunity for Cornelia to effectively run the business for the next couple of weeks, to generate some money in order to pay for the solicitor's fees, and then once the license is issued, I believe the person is Daniel, I don't have his surname, who wishes to purchase the business. I believe that he actually applied for a premises license himself, but there were some issues with the process, and that's been delayed by a couple of months or a couple of weeks. So basically, Cornelia has been put in a difficult situation where her partner, our former partner, Alan, ran the business and obviously caused lots of problems with the business and with the local authority and the police. He has sort of left her in a lurch, essentially. Only sort of avenue of recourse of her is to get a license issued by a local authority in order to sell the business, because without a license issued, the buyer won't complete with the sale of the business. After that sale, I believe Cornelia will be returning to Romania, her child and her soon-to-be child.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Sims. Do members have any questions for the applicant or the representative of the applicant? Yes, Councillor Say.
I've got some questions about the dispersal policy, if
Yep,
that's
no.
all right. The first one, I mean, I can't say exactly where in the document there are, but I'm going to go logical sequence. It says all staff members outside on exit must wear a high visibility jacket or other striking uniform. I don't know what that meant. Striking uniform.
So in order to let members of the public be aware that they are working for the venue, so SIA door supervisors normally wear high vis jacket. So when we're talking about an event that is essentially starting late in the evening, I think it's 8 o'clock in the evening and going on until 4, in order to identify a SIA door supervisor from a general member of the public or patron, they will have to have a specific uniform, in addition to having the SIA badge on display to sort of give members of the public the right reassurances that these are the people that are going to be protecting them. And also, if the council wish to visit, they know who to speak to directly in order to get access to the premises.
Okay. Staff and SIA will not tolerate the departing customers congregating outside the premises. I'm not sure what will not tolerate means in this context. It doesn't say what they would actually do.
So the SIA door supervisors are obviously trained and qualified in dispersal. So in terms of the staff members are allowed to sort of monitor customers, but in terms of interaction with any customers on site or in the smoking area, that is always dealt with by the SIA door supervisors. So Cornelia's paid a door supervisor company for 6 door supervisors. The normal ratio is normally 1 door supervisor to 100 people. So the event is for 300 essentially. I believe that they've sold
200 tickets.
So 200 tickets. So we're looking at between 200 and 300 customers showing up, and we've doubled the number of SIA door supervisors that are the normal bog standard requirement.
Okay, finally, well, I've got a couple more things. So, when you're talking about the outside management section, it says 30 to 60 minutes wind down time, whereas in the main body of the text it says 30 minutes. So which one's correct?
Well, both are essentially correct. So the wind down time relates to music being decreased over a time period, so around 60 minutes. And then members of staff verbally telling customers we're leaving. Again, once people are coming towards the exits and are vacating from the alleyway onto the main road, the door supervisor will reiterate those statements. But obviously, coming from someone who is SIA door supervisor and who has all the relevant attachments and badges, just to reiterate the point of leaving the area and dispersing in a quiet and respectful manner. And
finally, you said about a security checklist, and is this done every 30 minutes?
Right,
that's
so
right near the end.
Let's double check what page it's on. Is that on the last page?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, one before.
So my involvement in this case has sort of come at the last minute. But what I did when I had the initial telephone conversation with Cornelia yesterday is to clarify all the points that I needed. So when the SIA door supervisors arrive on site, if the application is granted, they know the parameters of what is going to be happening in relation to how the event is going to run. So this document essentially will be given and verbally gone through with the 6 members of the SIA door supervising team to make sure that they hit every single point. And Cornelia will be sort of overseeing that point. So all of these checklists, so they could show that they're operating and generally earning their money and making sure that they are helping the event disperse correctly.
Okay, thank you. That's me finished.
Dale, you had your hand up first, but if we could get Councillor Peacock, unless you wanted to just add something to what Councillor Say has mentioned. Is that the case?
Okay. Peacock, I was just going to give some clarity.
Okay, Councillor Peacock.
Thank you very much. I actually live very, very near this premises, and I've known it for many, many years. And I know exactly what you're talking about. The alleyway, which is there's a disused, horrible building right opposite the entrance to the restaurant, and the area there is very small. Now outside, I don't know who drew up the dispersal document, but it's a red route, and you can't park. Also, immediately outside McDonald's, there's a set of traffic lights, and then to the left of those traffic lights, there's another set of traffic lights. So it's impossible for any taxis or anything of parking to take place. So I don't know why it says in the dispersal thing that taxis will be outside. I'd like to know exactly where those taxis will be, because as far as I know, there's a red route and there'll be nowhere for taxis to park. So if you could answer that one, please.
No problem at all. I believe the document relates to them parking in a safe location outside the premises.
There is no safe place.
Well, a bit further along the McDonald's, where the McDonald's is located, there are temporary bays.
No.
I don't believe are operational after a certain time in the evening. Essentially, if customers are booking taxis, and they know that they need themselves. Obviously, the alleyway is a dead end, so them driving into the alleyway cannot occur. So once a taxi driver has arrived on site, they will be presented to collect their customers from the next safest location, a bit further up the high street.
It's absolutely impossible. If you knew the area, you'd know that it's absolutely impossible. It's a red route. They can't line up taxis out there. And when the people come out from the venue, they'd have to walk quite a distance before they could get safely into another car. I'm really concerned about that. And as I said, there's 2 sets of traffic lights immediately outside and to the left, and another one over the road. It's actually a very, very difficult venue to hold an event. And I can understand then that people coming out of the event, they'll be blocking all the pavement because they'll be waiting to see if somebody else can help them. They can't wait inside the building because they won't know where the taxis are going to be. It's very difficult.
Yeah, I understand. I've been trying to get a the OS map for the premises itself.
Yeah.
Give a better idea of where they came.
Yeah, and as I said earlier, often cars are parked in the alleyway as well.
So, I mean, from speaking to Cornelia and obviously drafting the disposal policy, allowing cars to be parked in the alleyway is not going to occur. Essentially, the nearest parking bay, which is not outside McDonald's, but outside the Asda High Road supermarket, they have a loading bay outside there for their Asda deliveries. So I would say that is one of the nearest available safe locations in the
You can't park in a loading bay. I've done that before and had tickets.
Thanks, Councillor Peacock. If we could get Miss Dahlia Barrett to just add in for clarity.
I think that the panel will need to view the document. Obviously, Mr. Sims, I believe, has only come to this issue maybe last night or at some point, and it looks like that dispersal document has been drafted in generic terms.
Yeah.
Because I obviously, because we know the area, I read that about the taxis, and I immediately thought there was absolutely no way that taxis can be stopping out there on the red route. But it also does mention snooker tables and so forth, which again, the premises does not have because it is set out as a banqueting hall, basically. There's no snooker tables or pool tables in there. So I think it's probably a generic document that's been used and being lifted and shifted for this particular premises due to the amount of time that probably Mr. Sims was engaged and able to produce something. But that aside, I think obviously the panel will need to put whatever weight they feel necessary or appropriate against that particular document when you're considering that. But just to give some clarification on this particular issue, because it has been raised now, Mr. Sims has gone through and tried to paint the picture of the background of this matter. So this Miss Kotler-Gut has in fact submitted now, this is in terms of a premises license, this is a second application that we have received now from Miss Kotler-Gut for a full premises license for the venue. The first one being attempted late last year, end of 2021. And even under that application, Ms. Kotler-Gut had sent an email through via her agent at that time saying that she had to let Mr. Mandaci go because she found out he was not operating the premises lawfully, and so she was going to let him, he'd been let go and basically gotten rid of from the business. That turned out to not be the case. That application was subsequently withdrawn. We then received now this second application from Miss Kotler-Gut using a different agent, and it's that matter that Mr. Sims referred to was going to the committee on the 28th of June. And then alongside that application, we also have a third application for the premises from a different Mr. Daniel Stigariou, who Mr. Sims, whose name Mr. Sims was trying to remember. Mr. Stigariou has served a document showing that he has signed some kind of a lease on the premises. We have asked Ms. Kotlagut and Mr. Mandati to clarify if they are still actually in control of the business and are pursuing their application for the full premises. And Mr. Mandati has come back to say, yes, he is. He still wants to have the opportunity before the committee on the 28th. And Mr. Stigario's application is also running alongside that now through its consultation period at this moment in time. And, you know, we don't know how that's going to end up, to be honest with you, but just to give you the context of the background information, okay, there for you. And while I'm talking, can I just ask, I'm a little bit concerned, Mr. Sims mentioned that 200 or so tickets had been sold. Now, obviously there was no authorization in place at this point, so I need clarity from Ms. Kotlagut that how are those tickets been sold, and do the people realise that it was going to be subject to a license that those tickets were sold? Because obviously if they don't get the 10s, then what's plan B? How are they going to manage those 200 odd people where they've sold these tickets already? How is that going to be dealt with?
Thank you, Ms. Barrett. Mr. Sims, if you wanted to speak on our behalf, if you wish.
Cool. So what I've been told is that the tickets were sold online. So it's a pre-booked event. If the event if the temporary event notice is refused, then the tickets will have to be refunded. So going back into the online booking system and trying to refund people's money to the event. In regards to the potential buyer, which is said correct, it's Daniel. Again, I wasn't party to any application that has been done, but it seems to me that the agents that were involved prior to all of this happening have submitted documentation and it's not running the course for whatever reason. But what I've been told, the purpose of having the event and also getting the premises license approved is to sell it to Daniel once it is actually approved. I think the application from Daniel himself through his various agents was done out of frustration because of the facts of being up in the air and there's no real clarification.
Thank you. Members, any other points of clarification or questions you want to add before I go to ask the objectors? No? Okay. Now the objectors, do you have any questions for the applicant or the applicant's representatives? PC Mitchum?
Yes.
Jennifer Barrett. Okay.
I do, yes.
Yep.
Two quick points of clarification. Number one, could the applicant specify where the smoking area actually is?
That's no problem at all. I'll get familiar to.
The smoking area is just opposite the entrance, the main entrance. Is a space for some people to go and smoke there.
Okay.
Like about 10 people we allowed at the time.
What the advice I've given to Cornelia is to have this little area, not pinned in, but have little barriers put in place to identify customers. This is the actual smoking area, and if they're going to be smoking, they need to be inside the pinned area, which is opposite the front door, which is inside off the main road in the alleyway. By the
Okay, so I would just like to raise the issue of the balcony. So at the top of the stairs, there's sort of like a lobby type area where during our previous visit, we were made aware that people were smoking there, but also there's a window that opens onto a sort of balcony area that use of that area for smoking is prohibited. Should be included in any documentation going forward.
Yeah, I believe we covered some of that information in the policy. Page number 4, disclosure policy.
Yep.
with a smoking policy sort of covers that.
Okay. And then the second point I'd like to make is just in parts of the document, or so later in the document, you refer to no glass under the challenge 25 heading. You mentioned no glass in the smoking area, but in the actual paragraph under the use of the outside area, you talk about glasses and cups being cleared from the area, and in a separate part you talk about no glasses permitted after 10 p.m. So it just needs some specific clarification about when glasses are permitted in that area. And my advice would be that no glassware is permitted in the outside smoking area.
You can definitely amend that in order to sort of alleviate the concerns, to make sure that no glass is it's permitted in the outside area whatsoever. Obviously, where it said this glassware for collections. Said because I only got instructed late yesterday afternoon, from evening. Then there may be some sort of typing errors in here as well. And I was looking at the past history of the premises itself, just to find out and give myself a better idea of what is actually happening, or the dimensions of the actual premises, I should say.
Thank you. Ms. Barrett, did you want to add anything else?
Nothing else from me.
Thank you. PC Mitchum, did you have a question?
It's not so much a question, it's just more clarification of a question asked of me from Mr. Sims earlier in relation to police response, if he still required an answer.
Sorry, Chair, yeah, that'd be brilliant, thank you.
Yeah. So the first call came in at 1932. Police arrived at 1942, so a 10-minute response, and that was an immediate response call. And the second call came in at 36 minutes past midnight of today's date. Police arrived at 00:43 hours, 7-minute response, and that was also an immediate response call. The people who officers dealt with when they attended was a member of security by the name of Marion Chera, and that is the only person that they spoke with and dealt with on their attendance. I hope that answers your question.
Thank you, PC Mitchum. Mr. Sims, did you want to say anything further about that?
No, not at all, no.
Okay, any other points of clarification or further questions for the applicant or the applicant's representative?
Chair, can I ask a question, please? That's a
Yes,
query.
Ms. Barrett.
Ms. Kotler has said that she is now the sole person responsible at the premises. Can she let us know what was actually taking place last night at the venue?
Yeah, it was like a nightish wedding without they bring their own catering. They didn't have any dancing or any music whatsoever, because they had like a dead, somebody died in a family, and they didn't actually have any dancing, and it was something quiet between them.
So can I ask a further question, please, Chair? So
yes.
Who was actually responsible at the venue for this event last night?
I was here, and then I was here till about 7, and then left and come back. So I was here.
So were you, sorry, Chair, a further question. So were you aware of the police visits at all?
I just knew about the visit on early call, like 7:19 or whatever the time was, about somebody who come in a premises without being invited. And then the other one I didn't know about. I didn't see any police whatsoever, so I didn't know about.
Is that all, Ms. Barrett?
That's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Now, can each each party now sum up, starting with the licensing officer, then objectors, and finally the applicant. Please keep succinct. Thank you. So, Ms. Barrett.
I have no recommendations, Chair. Obviously, the recommendations as to the potential outcomes, which is either a counter notice or to allow the TENS through, is entirely for the panel to decide.
Thank you. And now the objectors. Can we start with Ms. Jennifer Barrett? Please sum up.
Okay, so in summary, we raised concerns previously regarding the ability of the DPS to appreciate what they needed to do to comply with the Licensing Act and address specifically concerns about public nuisance and the use of the external areas. Yeah, so no further comments.
Thank you. And PC Mitchum, if you can sum up, please.
I have no further comments to make or recommendations.
Thank you. And finally, the applicant or the applicant's representative, if you can sum up, please.
Just to sort of jump back to one of the points raised by councillors, I've managed to get a Google Street View screenshot of the red route, which confirms it is a red route on Tottenham High Street. But the hours of activity of the red route are 7 AM to 7 PM. I've got that in, I don't know if you can see.
And no, you can't see.
But it's there. So there are loading bays outside the Asda supermarket premises, all the way until the Ladbrokes betting office. So the red route does cover that time period, but it stops essentially in the evening at 7 PM. So going back to summing up, the dispersal policy has been put together in order for Cornelia to run the event in a safe manner, and it details all the points that are necessary for the SIA door supervisors to manage the expected 200 to 300 people. So essentially, we're doubling up the recommendation of one SIA door supervisor to 100 members of the public. And if it is allowed to go ahead, the next stage would be for Cornelia to attend the hearing, which Delia said, I think it's on the 28th of this month, in order to facilitate an actual premises license and then get the business to be sold for her life. I believe obviously the document is quite long in terms of 6 pages, but it's important for her to get this application approved, which will help her move forward and will allow her to progress. If it's not approved, then obviously the people who purchase tickets online will be refunded. But again, the expense of having the singers who have been flown in from Romania is and would essentially make Cornelia out of pocket by several £1,000s. So I don't know if Cornelia would want to add any final statement to this as well.
No, I just really need to prove that I can do this event, and then to manage to sell the business and try to grow up my kids and move on with my life.
Anything further you want to add, Mr. Sims, before we?
Yeah, essentially, her former partner, in terms of all the issues mentioned in relation to the police and the licensing department, was the main source of contention. I wasn't aware of other discussions in the past, but essentially, any action taken against him shouldn't reflect badly on Cornelia herself, where she's come to the council and the rights is being transparent and wants to progress forward. She welcomed council officers or police officers to come and visit the event if it was approved. She could show you the different control measures and improvements that she's put up and beyond Alan's intervention or negative intervention over the last 6 or 7 months.
Thank you. Okay, so thank you all. We have now come to an end of this item. I ask that all parties please leave the meeting room so that the committee members have an opportunity to deliberate and make a decision on the application. As I've been informed today, the parties will be notified of the decision today as it is a TENS application. But thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, take care.
Mr. Sims, you're on mute.